Hey everybody, I'm Christy Miller. I'm the Creative Arts Director with Salt and Light, and we're really excited to try out this curriculum for you guys. So we're coming a couple weeks after ZETEO 2017 Storymakers, and the point of what we're trying to do here is you guys all came to the event of ZETEO and got to see the drama and got to hear what Matt Deans had to say and kind of dig into your stories a little bit. And we want to take all of kind of the plot of what happened and the characters and their journeys and give you a chance now, a couple weeks out, to think about how that relates to you and your own narrative and the things that you might need to change and develop alongside the Storymaker. So what we're going to do is you're going to hear from some of the cast about their characters journeys, about some cool moments, and then we're going to pause and give you guys a chance to reflect on the same kind of questions about your own lives and your own journeys. So we're really excited to share this curriculum with you. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Nate Hopkins. I'm 16. I play Oliver in Storymakers. Basically at the beginning, Ollie comes into Storymaker's office and really wants a girlfriend, and Storymaker has another plan and says that he wants to let Ollie befriend a girl named Sam. And so Ollie tries to befriend Sam, and then after bad experiences, he basically comes back to the Storymaker, says, I don't know how to do this. The Storymaker says, be persistent. And so eventually, after plenty of times just trying, Ollie brings Sam to the Storymaker. And then eventually he helps Sam with her journey with the Storymaker and helps his sister come back to the Storymaker. And he just stays persistent and continues on with his journey and helps all the other characters come back to the Storymaker.
Hi, I'm Sarah Eric, and I am 15, and I play Samantha Pierce in ZETEO Storymakers. And Sam is a foster kid, and you often see her throughout the drama, and she tries on many different costumes and many different personalities because she doesn't know where to place her identity. And she becomes friends with this freshman boy named Oliver, and he eventually leads her to the Storymaker, but then her foster family gives up on her and she feels betrayed, and she kind of goes back to where she came from. And then her tutor Jamie ends up adopting her and things end up okay.
Hi, I'm Megan Wilson and I play Rowan Rocket in Storymakers. And Rowan's story starts with an accident that she was in that causes her head and her back to be a little messed up, so she talks slower than most people and walks slower. So therefore she's prone to a lot of bullying from people in school, and then resorts to coping through that pain and hurt with self-harm and cutting herself. And so the journey is her kind of trying to figure out how she can fix herself and fix Johnny and all of these things, but doesn't resort to opening her book to people, and even the Storymaker at points. And eventually she comes to a breaking point of saying she can't do it all herself, and goes through a healing point with the Storymaker and with other people in her life.
Hi, I'm Charlie George, and I play Johnny Rocket in Storymakers. Johnny is a 17-year-old high school student who is very bitter with his dad. His dad was an alcoholic and got in this car accident that damaged his sister's brain and back and just kind of ruined the family dynamic. And through that frustration, Johnny turns to things like pornography and alcohol himself, which basically ruin his life. He struggles with it for a while, going to the Storymaker to confess, and finally fully embraces the sin that he is involved in and really messes some things up. A little bit after he fully embraces where he's at, he finds himself at rock bottom and comes back to the Storymaker frustrated, but is finally able to open up and talk about his dad issues, and just starts to work through the struggle with the Storymaker instead of on his own.
Hi, my name is Brendan Warren and I play Jamie Lee in Storymakers. And Jamie is a military kid who has been moved around a lot, and we see that later on in the story with a flashback. But he's best friends with Johnny, and he's dating a girl named Alexa, and they're in a kind of a relationship where Alexa's pretty manipulative and insecure, and Jamie is kind of forced to take that on and figure out ways to kind of fix that and get them back to a good spot. And in doing that, he takes over a lot of control of his life himself instead of letting the Storymaker kind of do the work that he's supposed to do. And because of that, and the dialogue with him and the Storymaker, there isn't much back and forth, and he doesn't hear a lot from the Storymaker because he's chosen to block him out and kind of write his own story. But later on, he meets with the Storymaker after kind of a moment of desperation and gets to hear his voice again, and from there on out kind of lets him guide where he goes throughout the rest of the story.
My name's Chloe, and I play Alexa Rose in the Storymakers. Alexa is the older sister of Ollie. She adores Ollie. He brings out a lot of her best qualities. She is also the girlfriend of Jamie, and is friends with Johnny, and had a really good relationship with him. Alexa loved the Storymaker, had a really good relationship with him until he failed her. She thought he failed her when her dad left, and she felt abandoned and very bitter and angry towards the Storymaker, which really disrupted that relationship with him. And ever since then, she's placed her heart in every person except for him, because she will do anything except return to him out of her bitterness towards the Storymaker.
One line from Storymakers that really resonates with me is a line that the Storymaker says to Ollie when he says, "You have no idea the impact one yes can have." And that hits home for me because nobody knows the impact that one simple move can have. So Ollie said yes to the Storymaker and eventually helped mend the relationships of so many other characters beyond what he could see.
The line that has spoken to me a ton from Storymakers is the line that says, "You can be brave." And especially in my life recently, I have been walking through some stuff, and I know some of my friends are going through some hard times. And it's just a great reminder that we can do anything through Christ, especially because sometimes being vulnerable is hard for me, and it's hard to open up my book and share with others. So that's why "You Can Be Brave" has been helping me through some stuff.
So a line that really resonates with me that Rowan says is when she's talking to Jamie about worshiping with her spirit, even when her words and actions can't really do that, because it's just a really raw and beautiful moment in the play that she is able to sing even though she really can't, and dance with her feet even though her body can't do that in the physical sense. So for me, it just says that even when my flesh and my heart are failing, like, I can still praise the Lord and can still thank Him for things in my life, even when stuff around me is not going the way I really want it to.
So one line that really resonated with me personally is after Johnny has fully embraced his sin, gone through all of his grime, he's covered, and he's talking to the Storymaker saying that, like, he doesn't belong in the Storymaker's office, and he's really upset with himself and says, "I just never thought I'd be that kid, you know, the one who gave up on you." And I found myself there a few times, going through some similar struggles as Johnny. I just never thought I would be that person, and I found myself there, and it's just a very disappointing place to be. So yeah, I think hearing that in the character just really resonated with me.
So I have a few lines that I resonate with. One is when Jamie is talking to the Storymaker, and one of the scenes where he can't hear the Storymaker talking back, and he says, "Can't you see I've been writing my own story for so long that yours is starting to fade, and I can hardly read it under my own handwriting." And then another one similar to that, when he gets to have dialogue with the Storymaker, and the Storymaker, or Jamie says, "I've been coming in here every day to find you, and I haven't been hearing you," and the Storymaker says yes, after choosing for months to write your own story. And that resonates with me because I feel like I've done that a lot in my life, and I've tried to rely on my own confidence and kind of see where I want to be in the future and try to get myself there instead of waiting for the Storymaker and God to tell me where he wants me to go, and following that, just kind of relying on my own confidence in my own story and trying to make that work for myself.
In the certain part of the Storymaker drama, Alexa goes back to confront the Storymaker and basically just explodes on him. And at the end of that conversation, the Storymaker says, "Alexa, what you're planning in your heart will not bring you peace." And I think that resonates most with me because a lot of times we tend to think that there is a way that we can fix something, or we can control something, or plan something that's better than what God has already intended. And it just brings me back to realizing that no matter what I do, no matter what I plan, there's always a better thing in store through what the Storymaker has already written.
Ollie's yes moment comes at the beginning of the story when the Storymaker asks him to befriend a girl named Sam. And at first he was like, well, what if she doesn't like me? I'm not good with strangers. But after some reassurance from the Storymaker, he finally says, okay, I trust you. I don't really know what I'm walking into, but I'll do whatever it takes.
So I think Sam's yes moment was when she was in the library with Ollie, and Ollie has just been trying throughout the entire drama to try and get her to go meet with the Storymaker. And so when he finally brings the Storymaker into the picture, she was kind of hesitant at first, and she didn't really know if she believed in something like that. But she finally agreed to meet with him because of Ollie, and so that's when Sam said yes.
I think for Rowan, her yes moment is when she is with the Storymaker and reaches out her hands to him and says, heal me, and he then says, well, you're going to have to take each day as I give it to you and trust me with it, and today courage. And she says, okay, so I have to open my book. And I think that's when she realizes she needs to let other people in for the pain and hurt in her life, and also not be afraid to let them know that she needs help.
So Johnny's yes moment, there's a few that I can think of, but I think the definite one is when he is finally at the Storymaker's office after he's willing to follow him again, and he has to rip out the page that says it's your fault 50 times on it. That really sets him into motion for working through the struggle in the correct way.
So Jamie's yes moment, when he says yes to following the Storymaker, is in the conversation where he's finally heard his voice for the first time in a long time. They're talking about Alexa and where to start after finally getting to know what the Storymaker wants for him. And he's kind of like, I can't talk to Alexa, I can't break things off, and I can't allow her to be left alone again, like Jamie wants to be the one who stays for her. But the Storymaker says to him, like, I'm supposed to be the one who stays. And Jamie finally gives in not only to letting the Storymaker take over his story, but also surrendering his possession and his need to kind of take care of Alexa and hand that over to the Storymaker and let her story be his as well.
So Alexa does a lot of things that are frustrating and upsetting for a lot of the other characters. One in which she turns down Columbia behind Jamie's back. And I think that's a turning point for her, where she begins to realize that the things that she takes into her own hands have consequences. And her yes moment, I think, really comes when she has her conversation with Lincoln towards the end, where she's faced with this opportunity to change something and make something different. And even though she doesn't believe that it'll make a difference, she's still choosing to get out of that cycle that she's been in for a long time, and decides that what could be worse than what she's already experienced, so she decides to change that.
I think after the drama, Ollie continues with his journey with the Storymaker. I think he has a lot of experiences like the ones you guys saw in this drama, where it's not ever a perfect journey, but in the end it's worth taking.
So when you last see Sam, she was just adopted by Jamie's family, and she also helped Alexa get her book back and find the confidence to get her book back. So I would say if Sam's story continued past the drama, I would say she is learning to love with action and not only in words, and she's trying her best to be the best sister she can. And she continues to help people who are lost with their stories find the Storymaker, and she's still friends with Ollie too.
So for Rowan, I think the next few steps are continuing to open her book up to people. I think she hopefully cultivates a friendship with Sam and continues to talk to her mom about what's happened, continues to walk with Johnny through different hurts and struggles. I think she may result to things again because it's just safe and normal, but as she works with the Storymaker, it continues to get better for her and she's able to find confidence and courage.
So, Johnny's epilogue. You last see Johnny talking to Rowan. He finally gives her the letters that he's been hiding from her, from their dad. And it's not very conclusive. Like, he's still in a conflicted place trying to work through his crap. And I think that's where Johnny's epilogue is. In the months following this drama, I think he's finally participating in the struggle that he should be. Because he's been fully accepting the sin that he's in, I think now's the time where he is actually struggling through it and fighting against it. And that looks very difficult in certain areas, fighting pornography and reestablishing relationships with people that he's broken.
So Jamie's epilogue is cool because I think he is just getting to, again, hear it from the Storymaker for the first time in a long time. And he just went through the whole process of getting to know Sam and then also adopting her along with his family at the end of the story. And so I think he is learning how to be a brother and how to care for someone after wanting to do that for a long time. And I also think maybe he starts a blog or a program for military kids on how to write their stories with the Storymaker and how he's come through that experience himself and kind of offer advice to them as a way of looking out for other people.
You see Alexa last in the dance at the very end, completely throwing herself into the Storymaker's arms. And I think she begins to rediscover her love for him, and she starts to find her satisfaction in him and place her heart in him. And it becomes a learning process. I think she goes through a lot of lessons of learning to give up control. I think she chooses to step away from the lifestyle that she's held. She stops, looking for boys and placing herself in boys. So she decides to be more focused. I think her relationship with Johnny mends. I'm not so sure that happens with Jamie, but I think she works really hard to mend those broken relationships and move forward and just continue in that.
Alright guys, so I'm going to lead you in a reflective response activity. So what I want you to do is close your eyes and take a deep breath. Just try to focus. Clear out anything else you're thinking about. I want you to just listen to what I'm going to say and imagine what I'm talking about. And if something sticks with you, just let yourself stay there and reflect on that thing, reflect on that question. And then hopefully you guys will have some cool discussion about it afterward. I want you to imagine walking into the Storymaker's workspace. Warm light filters in from a few lofted windows, revealing thousands upon thousands of books. Books lined on shelves that stretch from floor to ceiling, books upon books in messy piles at your feet, pages finished and unfinished, waiting to be read, loved, changed, restored. You step carefully, weaving through words both ancient and minutes old. You run your fingertips across a shelf, feeling the fibers of worn bindings and smooth covers. You slide one out of place and open it, the smell of fresh ink and old pages filling your senses, reminding you of home. And then you see him. He's always been there, waiting for you. You don't move at first. Something about him feels so familiar and yet so beyond what you could ever fully know. And he looks at you. Really looks. How is he looking at you? What emotions are in his eyes? And how does his look make you feel? He doesn't say anything, but you intuitively step closer. You don't fully know why, but you want to draw closer to him. You need to be closer to him. As you near his desk, you see it, the open book in his hand. It doesn't take you long to recognize it. Its verbs and nouns, chapters and headings are all yours. You can see where he's written something and you've written over it. You notice every torn out page, every treasured hope, every choice you've made to write his story or to write your own. What does your book look like? Is it beat up cover to cover or mostly whole? How much handwriting is his? How much handwriting is yours? Who else have you let write in your book? Are you proud of it? Ashamed of it? Do you wish it were different or more like someone else's? He gestures for you to sit with him, and you do, still lost in wonder at the multitude of narratives surrounding you. How could he write so many and still have time for yours? For you. He begins to speak to you about your book. What do you talk about? What are the parts of your story you most need to tell him? What are the things he's asking of you? Do you need to start something? Stop something? Continue doing something? How does his voice sound to you? Your conversation slows into a sweet quiet, and you sit together in sacred space. He slowly slides the book, your book, toward you. You pick it up and study it again. There is so much that could be, so much that isn't what it should be, so much you love and hate and want to hold on to and let go of. He waits, patient, kind, studying you as you study your story. With the book in your hands, you realize he's asking you something. Can you release control? Can you trust him with this? Can you follow him the way he's asking you to? And would you like to give him your story in exchange for his?
Hello everybody! This is an exciting bonus video coming at you from the ominous voice behind the camera named Cody Mitchell Sherry. I'm going to interview our host of the evening, Christy Miller, our creative arts director, on some random questions that I have for her. I have not prepped her on these questions. If you know Christy, she likes to be prepped, so I wanted to just go off the cuff and see what she has to say. But we'd love to give you guys a little behind the scenes details, and so we hope you enjoyed the curriculum so far, and that you're still reaping the benefits of what ZETEO was. So, Christy, my first question for you is, where did you first get the idea for Storymakers? When did it come about?
So, Storymakers is actually based off of a skit that I wrote 2 summers ago called The Storymaker, and that idea actually came to me. I was meeting with a mentor. I had just lost my dad earlier that year, and she was giving me some really good advice about how to kind of walk through that grief and walk through that loss. And I don't remember exactly what she was talking about, but it was something along the lines of how sunflower seeds, when they're pressed and crushed, create this really sweet sunflower oil. And she was talking about how a lot of times in our lives we'll feel like we're being pressed or crushed by things and not necessarily see the good that's happening under the surface because we just feel crushed. And for some reason that imagery gave me this picture of this girl with a book that was all beat up, and she was very upset about how her story had turned out and how it had all these things she didn't want in it and how it was torn up, and she kept trying to put it back together and it kept falling apart again. And I got really excited about it. I was like, I feel like I know that girl, that's me, you know, like I understand that. And so I went home and I wrote the first scene of the Storymaker, the first character, and it was a girl named Sam. And she kind of started it off, and then from there I was like, what if you had these other characters come in with their stories, and how are they trying to affect their stories, and what do they have to say to the Storymaker? And kind of created that whole skit. And so we did that back in 2015, and then I was talking to Charlie, and he said, you know, this would be a great ZETEO piece. You could kind of extend it, and you kind of have all these people's lives and all their stories happening outside of the Storymaker's office, and then you get to interject these conversations in the midst of that and see the whole thing together. And we thought that was an awesome idea, and here we are.
Awesome. What is your favorite writing utensil to use when you write?
My favorite writing utensil is a Pilot G2.37.
And where do you usually write in? Like what do you write on?
I love college-ruled notebooks. You'll see a bunch of them in my backpack, usually just like a standard one-subject notebook. I'll usually write SNL everything or Storymakers. I have 2 Storymakers ones. They're completely used up at this point because I'll draw little sketches of the stage in there and all sorts of other things. So I love writing in a notebook. I also use my laptop a lot to write, but handwriting is a lot more fun for me.
Do you have a favorite writing location?
It really depends on the year. So I write at Messiah a lot, and there I get a lot of inspiration when I get to hang out with our interns because they end up playing the characters. So that definitely helps me. Did a lot of writing at the Messiah Library this year. Barnes & Noble a lot of times. Coffee shops like Cornerstone are great. And this year in my chair in my room, I have an orange chair in my room, I did a lot of writing there.
Cool. What is your favorite scene of this year's?
Oh, goodness. Oh, there's so
First
many.
one that comes to your mind. First one that comes to your mind. Go.
Okay. The first one that comes to my mind is the scene where Johnny comes back after he's kind of like gone into all of his sin and had that really intense scene with Rowan and Jamie, and he leaves the house and you don't really know what's going to happen, and then he storms back in to the Storymaker's office and wants a different book, and like they finally are able to delve into all the things that have kind of been motivating his actions. I think that's a really important scene because everything else kind of building and you don't really understand for so long what's going on with him and what's going on with Rowan, and then all of it kind of unfolds in this way. And I love the idea of needing to tell God your story, like even though he already knows it, the importance of sharing that with him and letting him into that and letting him work on it with you, and the idea of like chapters that guide our lives and we keep going back to and keep reading and we keep hurting us and not changing and not working on. So I think that is one of my favorites.
Cool. So we had a lot of the characters share what they think the epilogue of their character would be. What do you envision as the epilogue, briefly, of one or two of the characters?
I was actually thinking about this earlier. Definitely for Alexa, I actually had a scene in mind that I wanted to write for her, but we just decided that Coming from the Cold was like the perfect way to end, so that kind of got cut. But I saw her coming into the Storymaker's office and kind of feeling this awkwardness of like, what do I do now? Because I've come back to you, but I don't know how to relate to you. I don't know if I trust you completely. And had this moment of the Storymaker. And the reason I love the Storymaker is he knows his characters so well that he knows what's going to work for them and how to relate to them. And so my thought for her was that I just saw them sitting at the desk and she's like, I don't know what to do, like what do we do from here? And him saying something along the lines of, you know how to go on a first date, right? Like would you have a cup of coffee with me? And then pulling out 2 cups of coffee, and they just sit and have, even if that's the end of the scene, but just that idea of, you know, like God being the first love and Alexa coming back to that. So I think that, I mean, it's not a full epilogue for her, but I think her epilogue definitely starts there. Let me see, for another character. I think for Rowan, I love the idea of her and Ollie. I don't know like if something like super romantic happens there, but even just like a good friendship between the two of them, just with the light that Ollie has in his character and how close he is with the Storymaker, I think that's a super positive influence on Rowan's life. So I think if that friendship develops, that would be a big part in her having more confidence in who she is, and growing more both in her relationship with the Storymaker and in opening up her book to others. So I think that's a really cool thing too for her.
Sweet. And last but not least, what are you going to do after hours and hours of work that you've put into the script and into the blocking and ZETEO weekend? How are you going to relax?
Probably the day after ZETEO, I will sit in my house and binge watch something on Netflix, and or go on vacation to Florida. That would be great. I need to go somewhere warm because it's cold up here. But yeah, probably, and then hang out with people. I love being around people I love, so that would be relaxing for me too.
Cool. Thank you, Christy Miller, for all
Yeah,
the work
thank
that you
you.
put in. Bye.
Bye.